Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, I want to share with you my beautiful purchase of my first Wes Paul. Welcome back, Jazz Cats, to the Trogly's Guitar Show, your daily dose of guitar information. That's right, you guys did not hear me wrong. I called this a Wes Paul. I would not blame you had you have never heard of this model, but it is a Les Paul blent with a Wes Montgomery. Now, if you're not familiar with the great Wes Montgomery, check out any of his works. He is an undeniably talented jazz artist. And this mysterious model that I only learned existed 4 months ago will be quite a documentation treat. You have never seen a Les Paul like this, and you might even say it looks very close to the signature guitar that I designed back in April Fools of 2021. Take a look at this beauty. It's a one humbucker Les Paul, only in the neck position. We only have a single volume and tone control. We've got our fancy pickguard, and most importantly, an ebony fretboard only adorned with mother-of-pearl block inlays, and a beautiful chalice flower pot headstock. And there it is, the official Wes Paul branding. Now, if you've never laid your eyes on one of these beauties before, you're probably curious, what is the history behind it? Well, these were created for the 1998 NAMM Show. While the numbers are a little bit iffy online, you generally see either 1 of 2 or 1 of 6. What I'm betting is there were 2 made for the NAMM Show, and then maybe just a handful of the rest got created. So it was a, if you want one of these, we can create you one, but it's certainly made for an interesting model. So allow me to teach you some more of the history of these guitars. The formal Gibson custom shop first opened in 1993, and in that same year, Gibson created the Wes Montgomery L5. Based on the L5 that he used throughout his career, he was well known for just having a single humbucker in the neck. Those guitars are also known for slightly brighter tones, due to them having X bracing instead of parallel bracing. However, in 1995, in efforts to create a lighter weight Les Paul, the Bantam series was created, initially under the Bantam Elite and Elite Plus branding. However, due to a Washburn lawsuit, the series was later renamed Florentine in 1996. It was basically a regular Les Paul, but had a completely chambered out mahogany body, and it just looked like a Les Paul custom. These are very different from the later Memphis-made ES-LPs. They might look the same, but the Florentine still had a solid maple top, and it's just a chambered out mahogany body on the inside. If you would like to indulge in a full review and documentation, you can check out this really cool limited edition one that had diamond F-holes. So knowing the history between those 2 models, they wanted to do something interesting for the NAMM Show. Both of these models were fresh in their mind, and Wes Montgomery and Les Paul were both very accomplished jazz musicians. And Wes and Les sound so familiar that you can blend the names and make it a Wes Paul. So no, we don't have a bald-headed cartoon character trying to find a Les Paul. We have something truly fantastic. So we've already talked about some of the cosmetic differences. Like normally, a Les Paul does not have a trapeze-style tailpiece. And no, this is not the exact same one that they use on the Wes Montgomery model. Those ones would have been too gigantic for a Les Paul. So this is clearly an artistic liberty. But you've got the single humbucker in the neck, the multi-bound tortoiseshell pickguard, our custom flare, and again our flower pot. And while yes, we do have the Florentine construction here with a nice lightweight chambered mahogany body, the biggest thing that makes this an incredibly special Les Paul is the fact that we have a solid spruce top. As far as I can tell, this might be one of the only spruce top Les Pauls, outside of like a custom order here or there. I did a lot of digging. Like for example, you can find Johnny A models that have spruce tops. But what I'm trying to convey here is that a Les Paul with a spruce top is a big deal. But I am so pleased to be adding this one to my personal collection because I have a bit of a story. I told you I first heard of this model about 4 months ago, and that's because one popped up on Reverb. It was for $8,900, and the last one that I could find that ever had shown up was on a forum, and it sold for like $7,000-ish, and that was nearly 10 years ago. Knowing what Florentines typically sell for, I didn't quite want to pay that much, and after waiting the seller out for a couple of months, the price came down a little bit, but still not where I wanted to be, and I was initially planning for this to be the April Fool's episode of this year, and when I was ready to pay him his price, by the time I went back for it, my Wes Paul was gone. I was heartbroken. I had let such a fantastic opportunity go. However, just a few weeks later, I get a couple of messages from people on Instagram saying, hey, you might enjoy this guitar that was just listed by a Nashville dealer. And when I saw the photos, my heart sank. I know where my Wes Paul went now. It's at a dealer. I went to visit their website ready to see it be posted for like $15,000 or something crazy. And to my surprise, it was actually considerably less than I wanted to spend. So that was the universe telling me, yes, you are destined to own one of these Wes Pauls. So let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs before we get to a playing demo. But wait a minute here. I just looked at the case candy, and this is all looking familiar to that old Reverb listing. So I checked the serial number, and it's the exact same guitar. I'm very confused because a dealer was selling this on consignment for that person, but then it ended up in a very well-known Nashville shop. It's almost like it was shipped off to a different dealer to consign. So yeah, I'm just flabbergasted right now. I thought for sure this was a different one, so maybe they only did make two. I'm still not 100% sure. So if you have a Wes Paul, I would enjoy hearing about it, but yeah, now let's throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside the Wes Paul, isn't this just a beautiful sight? You don't have a tailpiece in your way, you don't have a bridge pickup, it's very open and allows you to take in that two-piece spruce top. Now, I've always been curious why we don't have spruce top Les Pauls. I thought maybe there was a reason behind it, but now that I know that this exists, I don't see why they don't make more spruce top Pauls, because this looks actually pretty good. Just like a Wes Montgomery Model L5, this Wes Paul features a 57 Classic pickup, but true to form, we have a short neck tenon on this model just like other Florentines of the era. And I don't see any special markings in there. However, looking at the hang tags in the case one more time, seems to support that theory that maybe two were at the NAMM show and then the rest were just special orders. Because this is a tag from Guitar Center and it says special order at the top, but it calls it Wes Paul Florentine GH6. And it looks like this one was purchased in 1999. But this pickup within the circuit reads 7.94K ohms. I guess that's something else that makes this very unique. We do not have a toggle switch on it at all because you don't need it. It's just one pickup. And that's also why you have just a master volume and a master tone. It borrows the Wes Montgomery layout. So normally a Les Paul layout would be like right here and here. It's a little bit staggered. And here's a look at our luxurious pick guard. It's got a couple of picking scratches on it. It was played a bit. But yep, that looks like the real deal stuff back here. And you've got the multi-layers of binding. And since we don't have a regular tailpiece, we are rocking this style of a trapeze. Basically, you just put the strings on right there, and it just acts as a stop bar stud, just not drilled directly into the top. It'll give it a slightly different feel, but that just attaches to the bottom using two screws and your strap button, as you can see down here. And just in case you got one of these and you want to install a regular stop bar, keep in mind that tailpiece has really grooved our binding in a couple of areas right here. It's also left some impressions in the top. As far as the condition goes, it does have a few small light nicks and dings. It kept being advertised as mint condition at both of the dealers' places, but no, you got a ding in the top here. You got a fairly sizable gouge in the side right here. But I was shocked to see this. We also have one of the orange stickers in here that says Wes Paul with our serial number and style of guitar. But it says Gibson Custom on it instead of what it normally says. I was a bit surprised to see this. You'd think they would have sanded the mahogany down a little bit better in this area. And since we have a modified control plate, I'm surprised they didn't modify the back plate so we wouldn't see it through the F-hole. Not that it's ever apparent by any means, but if you're looking at it and inspecting the guitar, you see it. So, two-piece spruce top, chambered out mahogany body. Let's explore that a little bit more with our endoscope. We'll start inside the bass side F-hole. Here we can see our orange tag a little bit clearer, the whole Wes Paul and everything that we had talked about earlier with the Gibson Custom Nashville, Tennessee logo. Now for the insides. Yep, this looks like it is constructed exactly the same as all the Florentines we've seen. Right here is the route for the neck pickup, but I'm sure we'll see more of that over on the other side. But I was curious if they would have actually routed this for the bridge humbucker or not, but it's not looking like it. But here's a little bump for our screws to go through for our tailpiece, and then we're starting to see our controls. For the rest of that, we might as well look inside the treble side F-hole. Here we can see the output jack located on the side, but now going through the back plate, we can see the cutaway area over here that you're not supposed to see. Glue seepage and all. But now, moving on from our body, we've got our neck. So it's just a regular mahogany neck with an ebony fretboard. Again, we've got the mother of pearl block inlays. It's just like a Les Paul Custom or the Wes Montgomery model. Kind of a blending of both in this situation. But let's check out what our scale lengths and everything are. This model is 24 3/4. So unfortunately, we didn't get the 25.5-inch scale length of the Wes model. But it's got that 12-inch fretboard radius, 22 medium jumbo style frets with fret nibs. You've got a nut width of 1.7 inches. That increases to 2.06 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.93, and that increases to 1 by the 12th. Here's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret, just a nice rounded shape. It's very similar to my last Florentine Diamond Sparkle. I would actually categorize that as a big 50s neck. Not quite R7 baseball bat, but very close.
But here's a look at the truss rod. Everything seems within spec. Then we have our beautiful mother-of-pearl flower pot. If you don't see it, this is the vine, and then this is the flower. You've got your chalice cup right there. Then you've got your Gibson mother-of-pearl logo. And then would you look at that? This actually shipped me with flat wound strings on it. And I think that makes sense for jazzy stuff, so I'm just going to leave them as is. And now perhaps one of my favorite things about this guitar. Had they not went full blown and adorned it on the truss rod cover, Wes Paul, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much. It's just such a goofy name. I love it. I love that it's a jazz box. I now have something to encourage me to learn a little bit of jazz. Whether or not I'll actually do it, I think that's another story. But if nothing else, a great new addition for the museum collection. Now, moving over to the backside, what I really like about this one is the mahogany has a lot of dancing figuring within it. You find that a lot in the 90s, but it's got a nice dancing figuring. But it's a pretty dark back, so you don't always see that all the time. But this is pretty cool. We can see our pots. They date to extremely late 1997, so I guess that would kind of line up for a NAMM Show piece. It could be special order on that tag, means it was a special order guitar because Guitar Center won the lottery of getting to sell these. If you don't understand how NAMM Show display pieces get sold, check out this episode. That's not every day you get to see the backside of spruce. It just kind of looks like a whole glue layer, but you can kind of see the nice stripy wood grain. And here's a look at our chopped center block. Calling it a center block's not necessarily accurate. As we saw with the endoscope, they just route a whole bunch out of the body, and it's all connected. So if we had a toggle switch cavity right here, it would all be connected. Whereas Gibson USA's, when they do chambering, it's separate chambers. Now we can move up the back side of the neck. Pretty much more of the same. I didn't notice anything too crazy. We've got our custom shop decal. And then look at this. We've got the awesome Gibson branded Schallers that Gibson used since the mid 70s into the early 80s. But they still use them on high-end archtop guitars even yet today. So to see them on a Les Paul again really makes me smile. Then our serial number, once again, 89047. So that leading 8 with all these other specs means it was made in 1998. While inspecting this guitar, I found something kind of funny. There appears to be a hair in the finish right there. But we've got thick binding in the cutaway, which is kind of a shame. I would have loved to have seen a spruce stripe in the center there. But that's just how Gibson was making them in this day and age. Now along the edge here, we have some really long scratches that almost look like cracks. There's some more over here. They might just be slightly deeper finish checks. If this was actually a pressed side or something, I think then I'd be worried, but since it's solid mahogany out of the edges, I think we're okay. But I can also see we got a little bit of stand rash up here, which is unfortunate, but it really only appears to be on one side. But now it's time for a blacklight test. Everything's looking okay on the top here, but I did want to check out those things on the side that I had found. Yeah, you can definitely see them a lot more clearly here. I'm not exactly too sure what's going on with that. But the good news is the stand rash is relatively minor. But what's nice about the fact that this was displayed on a stand, since this is a real celluloid pickguard, it hasn't off-gassed and got trapped in a case and deteriorated and destroyed the finish. So until I get a nice display for this thing, I'm going to have to remove the pickguard just to make sure that it's all good. But here's what our headstock looks like. Then you can't see this in regular lighting, but you can see another stand mark down here. So yeah, this was a display piece for someone at some point in time. But everything's looking good here. And all cleaned up here, it's only 7 pounds 2 ounces. That's really lightweight, even for a Florentine. Usually these Florentines really aren't that much lighter than normal Les Paul Customs. We're talking about 9 pounds, so they use some really choice mahogany on this. And who knows, maybe the spruce top helps it not weigh as much. So let's go ahead and plug this one in and hear how it sounds. Yeah, I'd say it's got the jazz sound. I don't know if it's the spruce top or if it's the flat wound strings, but it's got a really clear top end and a growly bottom end. I mean, listen to that. I think you can hear what I'm talking about on that. Very round. I think it's mainly the strings. The clarity of those top notes, fantastic. I think we get the idea. I need to work on my jazz licks, but this thing is sounding great with what little I do know. Let's try some distortion just for fun. Now that we know all about the Wes Paul, what are my final thoughts on this thing? I think it's an absolute knockout. The tones that were coming out of this thing were quite fantastic. I am absolutely in love with this thing. You know, if you're trying to do the whole jazzy stuff, I mean, if you're trying to rock out on it, yeah, sure, you can get some blistering lead solo tones out of your neck pickup if you really want to, but as far as like really hot bitiness, yeah, you kind of need a bridge pickup for that. So I can see why they didn't make too many of these, but as a really limited run in the original Florentine era, this thing is just such a cool find. I'm glad I found out about these and was able to secure this one. Wasn't the most direct path to me, but hey, I actually ended up saving money and I am in love with it. So no, you cannot take my Wes Paul away from me. I love it. All right, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.